Good evening. I would like to call the October 3rd, 2023 Planning Commission meeting to order. Please note this meeting is being hosted through live stream on the city's website and by teleconference via Zoom. I would like to remind the planning commissioners to have their microphones turned on in positions so the audience can hear. Director Monique Alanis Flechter, may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Booth,
Present.
Commissioner Hill,
Here.
Commissioner Worth,
Here.
Vice Chair Beamstricker.
Here. Thank you.
He is absent with notice.
Thank you. Number 3, invocation and flag salute, Commissioner Worth.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, thank you for the opportunity to come together and serve our community. Pray for the wisdom to make the right decisions. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, public comment period. Agenda item number 4 is public comment period for items not on the agenda. Are there any members of the public present that would like to comment on the item not on the agenda? Are there any members of the public joining via teleconference or Zoom that would like to comment?
I don't show anyone via Zoom requesting to speak,
Thank you.
and I did not receive any e-comments.
All right, thank you very much. Item 5 is the approval of the minutes from the meeting of August 1st, 2023. Does the commission have any comments or corrections for the minutes of July 18th or August 1st? August 1st.
I do have a question. I was not here for that meeting, but I did review them. Am I allowed to, do I abstain or can I vote?
So you were allowed to vote if you'd like to. It's generally the practice of many members of boards and the city council to abstain if they weren't present. But there's nothing preventing you from voting to approve them if you'd like to.
Okay.
So if there's not enough votes to approve, then when they just get moved to the next.
They would. So what you're talking about is the exact situation that I contemplated when I said generally people abstain. But for example, sometimes you have elections, sometimes you have new people appointed, and you wouldn't even have a majority who were present at the previous meeting, but the minutes still need to be approved. So if you're confident that the minutes are accurate, you can vote to approve them, even though you weren't personally in attendance that evening.
Thank you.
If we didn't have a majority vote to approve them, we can either make an amendment to them that would gain a majority if there was a correction that needed to be made, or it could be put off to the next meeting if that was something that the planning commission wanted to do.
Okay. Well, I feel confident because I did review them.
May I have a motion?
I have a motion I'll make motion to approve the minutes of the planning commission meeting of August 1st, 2023.
A second.
That passes. Agenda item 6. There are no received file and items. Moving on to agenda item 7, there are no continued items. Item 8 for tentative parcel track map number 36566 for Frontier, California. Associate Planner Soledad.
Good evening, commissioners, members of the staff, and members of the public. I will be presenting map 23-003. Why isn't this moving? We have map 23-003, which is a lot split. The owner is Frontier, California. The applicant is LaCroix. The address is 120 and 150 South Juanita, and it's approximately 2.44 acres. Here we have an aerial view, and this is right behind City Hall. We see proposed parcel 1 and 2 in the outline. And here we have the general plan, which shows this as a mixed use in the downtown. The zoning is the downtown specific plan. And in the downtown specific plan, this area is in the downtown village district. Here we see the proposed dividing line from Buena Vista, and then it shows down to Juanita. In the past, the larger building on proposed parcel 2 was GTE's customer service office to start home phone services, make payments, purchase phones, and request service calls. A portion of the building also provided offices for telephone operators, linemen, and other service employees. Due to technology, many of the services and staff are no longer necessary. And the larger of the 2 buildings on parcel 2 is no longer necessary and deemed to be surplus property. Frontier, who is now the owner of the property, is requesting the land division so that the surplus property may be sold. Planning has added on-site conditions requiring prior to the occupancy of the building on parcel 2, the new owner shall install a trash enclosure, repair and resurface the parking lot, and replace the chain link fence with an acceptable fence material. And engineering has conditions regarding access, drainage, offsite improvements that will be required prior to the finaling of the map. Tentative parcel map 36566 is exempt from CEQA under class 15 minor land divisions, which consists of property in urbanized areas for residential, commercial, and industrial use into 4 or fewer parcels when the division is in conformance with the general plan and zoning. There are no variances or exceptions required, and all services and access to the proposed parcels to local standards are available. And the parcel has not been involved in a larger land division in the previous 2 years. And there is no average slope greater than 20%. It is respectfully requested that the Planning Commission adopt the Planning Commission resolution approving tentative parcel map 36566 and direct staff to file a notice of exemption with the county clerk. This concludes my presentation, and the applicant is here as well to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Soledad. Does the commission have any questions for the staff at this time?
I don't. Seems pretty straightforward to me.
I have a couple. So is there a future tenant already identified that's kind of in the process right now?
Not that I'm aware of.
So would that future tenant be subject to a CUP when they come in? Would they come before the Planning Commission at that point?
It would depend on the proposed use.
Okay, and then there's, from the staff report, there's 2 sets of requirements or conditions that are being placed. One is as part of the split. And then from what I understand, if those conditions are not met by the time that it's recorded, then there would be a deposit made. There would be a deposit made into an account, kind of like a bond pulled for who's responsible for completing those. Would it be the city?
Yes, the bond would be paid by the applicant, and the work, I'm gonna say that Actually, I don't know.
So
You can answer that. Okay, the applicant is here.
Well,
as
and
well.
we can wait for public hearing for
Okay.
that, but that's just from the staff report, just for clarification on the staff report.
So there's a condition, condition number 26. Construction of all proposed improvements in the right of way which are not completed and accepted prior to map shall be included in a subdivision improvement agreement approved by the city attorney with security guarantee construction. Such agreement and security shall be approved by the city council concurrent with the approval of the map.
Right. So is that like a bond or deposit? How does that work?
So there are a couple different forms of security that are authorized under the development code. The form that the city generally accepts are bonds.
Okay.
If the work is not completed in the time limit required under the subdivision improvement agreement, either the city can take the bond, the amount of the bond, use the proceeds to complete the work, or more often, the insurance company will complete the work at their own expense in lieu of providing the proceeds over to the city, generally because they feel like they can get it done faster and cheaper than if they turn over the entire bond proceeds to the city.
Yeah, it seems like there might be some overlap depending upon who ends up purchasing the property in terms of those improvements. And so it'd be, the most efficient way of kind of consolidating those between whatever the conditions for the new tenant would be versus what's been bonded, to make sure that ultimately the end project is done properly. But I guess if depending upon the use, if it doesn't come back to the commission for the CUP, then from this point forward, it'll just be within staff and with the city attorney's office to ensure that the requirements from the split in conjunction with the requirements for the new tenant are.
And the subdivision improvement agreements do have to go to the city council for approval.
Okay.
So when we're talking about like what improvements would be applicable to which parcel, generally you're thinking where's the frontage, right?
Right.
For a project like this, in an existing neighborhood, I don't anticipate a lot of complexity with that, but I know that our council is very interested in ensuring that
Right.
those subdivision improvement agreements are well written and they're being enforced. We're looking at existing ones right now to ensure that they're being complied with. If you don't mind, Chair, I did want to bring up a couple of maybe suggested revisions. I'm tagging into the meeting tonight, so.
Well, I appreciate this because this being that it's right there, downtown village, specific plan, it's a big part of our.
Oh, my office faces it, so I would like a good looking project out the window. I did recommend to the director that the language in conditions of approval 8, 9, 10, the language, the new owner, be stricken. And language simply indicating that prior to occupancy, for example, on number 8, the trash enclosure shall be constructed. Instead of putting the new owner, that implies that there will be a new owner. That isn't necessarily something that we're certain to occur. So just for the sake of eliminating that ambiguity, I recommend that those 3 conditions be revised to make it clear that those conditions exist regardless of whether there's a new owner or the old owner when the final map goes through. The other recommended change, this was mostly just to clear up another ambiguity I saw on condition of approval number 19. It said the subdivider will be required to form or annex to a lighting and landscape maintenance district. I think I'd recommend putting shall be required to form or annex both parcels into a lighting and landscape maintenance district, to be clear that condition is applicable to both of the new parcels that are being created.
And then that would be tied to the C of O for the second parcel prior to occupancy.
No, that would have to be completed before the final map went to
Okay.
the city council for approval.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that was some of my questions in terms of kind of the sequence of events on how that would happen to make sure that we get what we need to get done.
And that might be something that I know that the Public Works Department has been working for some time on the creation of a new zone for the lighting and landscape maintenance districts that allows these one-off projects in the older areas of town, instead of having to form a new district for every single small project, the administrative burden that comes with that, having a sort of citywide landscape and lighting and landscape district that these one-off projects can annex into for a relatively low administrative cost on them. So I know that's certainly high on the priority for the Public Works Department.
Not to go up on tangent, but I think I would love to be more involved in that discussion, specifically as it relates to how we condition new developments to improve streetscape, the aesthetic appeal to the city. If we're associating it only with the annexation of the particular frontage, then you end up having a whole bunch of different systems that are not efficient, there's a much better way of doing that if we can do more of a program level or more of a
And
master.
I think
plan.
that's the idea.
Yeah.
It allows it to be run much more efficiently. You can have uniformity
Mhm.
of process. It's easier on the applicants, you have to
Right.
form a LMD for 50 feet of frontage or something like that. And then you also get economies of scale because when you're looking at doing the maintenance obligations for the LMD, you can put the whole group out for a bid and you'll get a sort of a volume rate for that kind of thing.
Just need to make sure that those fees are appropriate for the future costs is all, because as soon as they do that, then they're off the hook. And I don't mean that in a negative sense, but making sure that we collect enough so that the city doesn't end up being in the negative on trying to finish up.
Right. These would all be post Prop 218 compliant, so they would include the escalators that some of the older ones don't have just because they were pre-Prop 218. And I think what we found with a lot of the applicants, a lot of them are willing to do the work themselves. Honestly, you're not talking about a significant amount of frontage. And so something that this city has developed in the last year, they're called their default assessment districts, where it's actually a very de minimis annual assessment. And if the applicant does the work themselves to city standard, they don't get an annual assessment. The annual assessment only kicks in if they default. That is, if they don't complete the maintenance themselves. And most businesses have found that preferable because they can control the cost. They usually think they can do it cheaper than the city can. And then, if there's an issue, they can go out there and take care of it immediately as opposed to having to call the city to come out and do it. But
Yeah.
that way the city can assure that it will get taken care of if necessary.
Well, thank you. That was kind of the crux of my review and comments. So you addressed them.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Is this a pretty common occurrence that we have in our city where we're able to divide parcels up in the downtown district or downtown area?
Yes, this is a common practice, as long as it meets the criteria.
I think that's all my questions. Okay.
Typically, the maps that you see as the planning commission are large residential projects or large industrial projects, greenfield, no existing development. It's kind of exciting to actually see this happening in downtown. I think it's something that we want to be supportive of.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's our downtown village is, that's such a key part of it. So hopefully that's such a stranded asset there with that huge building and the parking lot and everything else. So drive by there with my cell phone, thinking about the people having to go in and buy phones in the past.
Any other questions?
Nope. Rotary phone.
I do have one question about the parking. Mixed use development, it says the parking study shall be required. The one question I have is credit shall be given for parking that is found immediately adjacent to the property in the public right-of-way area and the parking lots within 300 feet. Is this something that's just a standard protocol on all, or this particular lot because of I think it's a city parking lot right next to it? So can you explain a little more about what that means?
In the downtown area, there is limited parking. But there is also public parking. And there is an allotment that if the site itself doesn't meet the regular required parking, they can utilize the public parking, or they can also come up with a plan to deal with parking, which could be something like valet parking or using the public parking that is not immediately adjacent.
But that would be required based on whoever ultimately comes in and occupies it, and whether or not it's a CUP, or depending upon that, the staff would address the parking requirements based on their intended use.
Yes, it would depend on the use because there is different parking for different types of uses. And the way it's parked now, it satisfies the parking for office, but we don't know who the tenant is going to be.
Space, yeah.
Hopefully it's shopping.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
We're gonna go ahead and open up public hearing. Are there any members of the public present or online that would like to comment on this item?
I do have somebody online requesting to speak. Caller EPAP, you can go ahead and give your public comment.
Talking on mute.
Caller EPAP via Zoom, you may speak now. I do show that caller EPAP has raised his hand, but I don't see any other communication from him.
And Mr. Hernandez, were there any e-comments submitted?
I did not receive any e-comments.
I'm going to close public hearing.
I do have a request to speak from Mike Morgan with Blue Croy representing Frontier.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, members of the public. My name is Mike Morgan from Blue Croy Limited, here on behalf of Frontier tonight to answer any questions you may have and address some of the comments that were made earlier. I will offer that we have reviewed the staff report, resolution, and the conditions, and we're in concurrence with all of them, including the suggested changes that Mr. Graham made this evening, clarifying some of the conditions 8, 9, 10, and 19. And Mr. Worth, to address some of your questions, there are various milestones that are hit on the various conditions that are required, some before the map, some before occupancy, and the responsibility is all borne upon the owner and applicant. If we were to engage into an agreement with the city for deferred improvements, the agreement will be between Frontier and the city. So Frontier holds that responsibility. There may be a time where that agreement is transferred or conveyed, but it's always under the control of one party. So the responsibility is being accepted by Frontier, and therefore the satisfaction of all those conditions that you see are being taken on by Frontier.
If the property is sold, do those requirements stay with Frontier, or do they go to the new property owner?
So the requirements run with the land, and depending on what items were or were not satisfied prior to the recording of the map or prior to occupancy, because again, the timeline it's indeterminate at this point.
Sure.
And there may be a new tenant before there's a sale of parcel 2. And if there's a new tenant, that would trigger the occupancy requirement, which would trigger the on-site requirements. So Frontier would take those on. But that being said, the current owner and the current applicant is Frontier, so they're taking on the responsibilities for everything. And until a third party is involved, those responsibilities can't be transferred or shared. So it's always city coming to Frontier, Frontier coming to the city until something changes. And if something changes, it would require the cooperation and approval of the city. It's not just something that Frontier can do on their own.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And again, bonds are posted that cover the improvement
Yeah.
costs and all that stuff. So, but I think that was well covered. I'm here to answer any other questions you have. And I would also like to offer our gratitude to staff both in planning and public works for all of their help in the preparation of this map over the course of the last several months. So, thank you.
I spent a little bit of time in there when I was in high school. My now father-in-law worked for GTE back then, but do you have any idea or any indication of what kind of tenant you're trying to get in there? Or is there an idea at this point, or?
No, there's not. And typically, when a property like this is subdivided and surplus property is sold, the burden of occupying and redeveloping is put onto a developer, not necessarily the telephone company. It's not their business.
Right. Right, okay. Well, thank you for being here and answering the questions.
Certainly. Thank you.
So, Mr. Morgan, let me clarify again. You're okay with the modifications to the conditions by our city attorney?
Yes, they
Okay.
make perfect sense.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Members of the Planning Commission, just to bring up the assignment issue, wanted to echo the speaker's comments. The standard language of the city's subdivision improvement agreement prohibits the assignment of the agreement's responsibilities to another party without the consent of the city. So those typically go to the city council in the form of an amendment to the subdivision improvement agreement.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Close public hearing. And ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the attached planning commission resolution, attachment number 1, approving tentative parcel map number 36566, map 23-003, exhibit 1A, subject to the conditions of approval, exhibit 1B, and 2, direct staff to file a notice of exemption with the county clerk. And I believe the condition changes recommended by the city attorney.
I'll second.
That motion passes. Item 8B for tentative parcel map number 38808,
Thank you.
Associate Planner Soledad.
Thank you. We'll be considering map 23-004, which is parcel map 38808. And the applicant is Rancho Diamante. We have the applicant present, Eric Flody. And this is located at the Page Ranch specific plan, which is Warren Road to the west and BNSF Railroad to the north. And this is 245.04 acres. The request is for tentative parcel map to divide 245.07 acres into 4 parcels for the purpose of financing and conveyance. Parcel A, 104.25 acres residential. Parcel B, 82.14 acres residential. Parcel C, 31.34 acres residential. And parcel D, 24.33 acres commercial. The creation of a financial and conveyance map is for financing mechanism. However, no development will be allowed pursuant this map. Here we show the boundaries of the property. This would be what is just newly named Walden Weaver Road. This is Warren. Here we have the general plan showing regional commercial in the corner and low density residential in the remaining area. And the zoning is the Page Ranch specific plan. Here we show the proposed map 38808 showing the 4 parcels, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And of course, this is also the same map 36841, which was approved for 518 single family homes. On June 8th, the city council approved a master development plan, which divided the 245 acres into 586 single-family lots, 19 acres for commercial uses, and the remaining for public and private parks. That approval also changed the classification from a 6-lane arterial to a 4-lane secondary arterial. And it changed the zoning of 19.67 acres from low density to regional commercial. Additionally, on June 6th, earlier this year, the Planning Commission considered a 4-year extension of time, which it approved. The proposed findings for a conveyance or financial map include that there will be no conflict with any public easements, and there shall be no physical constraints or issues which may affect the feasibility of future development. And the parcels shall all have access from a public road. And the proposed map shall meet the minimum size requirements. And those findings are explained in the staff report. The general plan and zoning consistency is indicated as the general plan is low density and regional commercial, and the map is solely for conveyance and financing purposes, and there is no development proposed. And when there is proposed development, it shall meet the general plan and the page range specific plan. The current zoning is single-family residential and general commercial. And again, the map does not propose any development. And when it does, it will conform to the standards of the Hemet Municipal Code and the page range specific plan. It's exempt from CEQA pursuant section 15315, class 15, which is minor land divisions, which is urbanized areas in or zoned residential, commercial, or industrial into 4 or less parcels. Additionally, this map 368441 was approved in June 8, 2021, and it also certified the final subsequent environmental impact report, the mitigation monitoring reporting program, and the specific plan and general plan. At that time, a notice of determination was filed according to CEQA requirements. It is respectfully recommended that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution to approve map 38808 for financing and conveyance purposes only, based on the findings and exhibits and subject to the attached conditions of approval, and to direct staff to file a notice of exemption with the county clerk. This concludes my presentation, and the applicant is here as well to answer any of your questions.
Thank you for the presentation, Soledad. Does the commission have any questions for staff?
Is Stetson gonna? Like, I feel like there's gonna, I feel like that's gonna have a massive impact on traffic in that area. And it's almost like it's almost like a little by road that people use to get around other places.
So, this doesn't, just so to kind of piggyback on that, this doesn't, the track map that was previously approved that includes circulation routes, changing of Warren Road, running Mustang up through the new Walden Weaver, none of that changes as part of this action. This is simply splitting the properties so that they can reconvey interest, right?
Yeah, correct. I was just asking if there was any, if it, like, because I didn't hear anything about Stetson, and I was just interested that if anything had been, if Stetson had if there had been any kind of traffic studies done or anything on that area.
There absolutely was when this came through as part of the specific plan and the tentative track map and the environmental documents when it came through for the master track. So this is just an overlay for financing purposes, but the actual master plan did have an environmental review, traffic impact analysis, there will be roadway requirements.
Okay.
I did want to mention too, just, also for, benefit of the public as well, for the staff report. You were provided tonight with a memorandum, with the map, just showing and illustrating, in the staff report, that was, posted, it indicated, Stetson Avenue. And that actually has been corrected. It was approved as Walden Weaver Road, by the Infrastructure Commission. So it was a little confusion because you see how it's diagonal and how Walden Weaver kind of goes up. They called it New Stetson, and then you had Stetson, and they were intersecting one another.
Gotcha.
And it was an emergency issue, as far as addressing, how would that work? So, that Walden Weaver Road is the new roadway.
Okay.
Chair, if you don't mind, I had a quick question for staff on this one. So it does state on the face of the map that it's for financing and conveyance purposes only. That's not unusual. The city has done those before. Generally, when we've looked at maps that allow for conveyance, we've included a condition of approval that requires either that the parcel be adjacent to public right of way, or that it have an access easement recorded that ensures that we're not creating any landlocked parcels. Is that on the map? Am I missing it?
So
I do see like a long list of easements. I gotta be honest, I didn't read them all.
So as part of the staff report, we did include the master tentative track map. We didn't do an overlay to illustrate that, but it does align with the proposed track map and, does provide access,
Okay,
to the parcels.
So we're not creating any landlocked parcels.
Correct.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that I saw that in the staff report, and then, so my general thought on this was, why is this having to come before the planning commission? It doesn't affect anything that's been approved whatsoever. That does, but I have no other comments besides, seems like something that could be done ministerially.
So that might be a good question for the applicant if they're present. What I can tell you is on projects like this, I've seen the financing and conveyance maps go forward because typically they have different parties who are interested in doing the commercial construction and development versus the residential construction and development. Gives them the opportunity to enter into contracts and financing those various aspects of the project. But that'd be a great question for the applicant probably.
Yeah, I guess if it doesn't affect any of the prior approvals by the commission, and by the council. So wondering if there's any, and I'll open this up to public hearing, but if it was a requirement of the city to say you have to go through a public hearing process to do this PM, or if it was a request.
Yeah, it is a requirement of the Hemet Municipal Code that the Planning Commission review conveyance maps, similar to tentative track map.
Okay,
There you go.
there you go. Thank you.
In writing.
In writing. Nothing else.
Question or any other questions?
Soledad, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Soledad. Now I'd like to open up public hearing. Are there any members of the public present or online that would like to comment on this item? Mr. Hernandez.
I do show a caller EPAP raising their hand. EPAP, are you on the line? Would you like to speak? I don't see any further communication. EPAP, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I'm sorry about, I had driving. I've had some technical difficulties with the other hearing item. My name's Emery Papp. I live at 27320 Big Springs Ranch Road in the unincorporated areas of East Hemet. I'd like to go on the record as stating that I support this project and I think it's a good good for the city moving forward with this. I do, however, disagree with the CEQA findings and determination. It's been recommended that the project qualifies for a categorical exemption 15, a minor land division under section 15315. However, I just feel that you're opening yourselves up for the possibility of somebody disputing that on the grounds that one, it's not truly a minor division of land, even though it's only 4 parcels. It's well over 200 acres, which is a large area of land. And secondarily, I would argue that it's not an urbanized area. The exhibits that were provided with the staff report, the aerials, and also the table in the staff report indicate that you have vacant land on 3 sides of this project boundary with development to the east. I believe to the south, there's a farm with 1 house on it. North of the project site is also vacant, and west of the project site, you have the Colorado River Aqueduct or the San Diego Aqueduct. And then beyond that to the west is vacant farmland. So I think you're opening yourself up for a dispute if you go that route. However, I do believe that the project actually is not exempt, only that there's no further environmental analysis required under section 15162, subsequent EIRs and negative declarations. I believe the project conforms to the previously adopted EIR and mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Therefore, no further analysis under CEQA is even required, and actually a notice of determination should be filed. So I just wanted to go on the record. I support the project. I just think that you're opening yourselves up for challenge if you call it a categorical exemption. And if I have just a moment of time, I understand the other public hearing is over. I would just like to go on the record that I was going to state that I supported that project as well, but had some concerns about the potential for fire access, being that it was going to be subdivided into 2 parcels. And there was no mention of a fire department analysis or any kind of Knox box or other remote entry at all of the gates for that site. So I just thought I'd throw that out there with my remaining time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you this evening.
Thank you for your comment. Any members of the public?
I do have Rick Brasher on the line requesting to speak. Rick?
Yes, this is Rich Brasher, civil engineer for the tentative parcel map. And the basis for the creation of this map was to break such a large project, 586 units, into more manageable sizes where builders could take down 1 parcel of residential at a time, as opposed to all 586 units. So that's why it was broken up the way it was. Also, the proposed primary road rights of way would be dedicated with the final parcel map. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I did want to address our obviously learned public commenter who came in on the phone. The definition of an urbanized area can be found in Public Resources Code 21071, which means an incorporated city that meets either the following criteria. Either you have 100,000 in population, which we know Hemet, at least at this point, does not, or you are part of a contiguous stream of incorporated cities where in conjunction, in total, you have 100,000 or more. The city of Hemet and the city of San Jacinto are contiguous and together have a population greater than 100,000. So although it is true that you have farmland on various sides of this parcel, the urbanized area definition actually applies to the entire city of Hemet. And looking at the categorical exemption, there's no limit on the size of the parcels. It simply says 4 or fewer. In this case, you have 4 or fewer. So I do think that the comments will take, and obviously we want to take a look at every time we are making CEQA determinations. I concur that the city could have taken an alternative path to find compliance with CEQA. Obviously, we have a specific plan that's been approved that had a CEQA document attached to it. Could likely have simply said no further environmental review is necessary because we already did previous environmental review. But I don't think staff was incorrect in recommending the categorical exemption that they did.
Thank you.
That answered my question.
May I suggest as part of that CEQA exemption that we also incorporate the comments to include CEQA guidelines 15162 into the environmental determination based on a prior EIR.
What was that number? CEQA one.
CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act guidelines 15162. And that is just based off of a prior CEQA exemption based off the prior environmental impact report. That no further CEQA review is required. But that would just be in addition to the exemption that we provided in the resolution. So we would add CEQA exemption 15162, incorporate that into the resolution as well with the appropriate language.
Okay. Any other public comments?
I don't show anyone else requesting to speak, and I did not receive any e-comments. I did get a request to speak from Eric Floating with Rancho Diamante, if you have any questions for him.
I guess the only question, and you can respond with a nod, and then I can, do you have any issues with any other conditions from staff? Note that
I'd recommend that that be stated on the record.
okay,
If again, I know it's a long walk.
sorry.
Good evening, Chair, fellow commissioners and staff. Addressing Mr. Worth's question, yes, we agree with all the conditions of approval as currently written. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions while I'm here?
Good luck. Let's get this thing going.
Long road. Thank you.
That with no other public comments, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I will motion and move to adopt planning commission resolution to approve tentative parcel map 38808 for finance and conveyance purposes based on the findings and exhibits and subject to the attached conditions of approval with the revisions as
5162.
as recommended by Director Monique. And to direct staff to file a notice of exemption with the county clerk.
A second.
And that passes. Moving on to number 9, agenda 9, there are no work study items.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations.
All right, and then moving on to agenda
GP
item
chat
number
or
10, city attorney reports.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing in particular to report. Obviously, I'm sure the Planning Commission is aware that there is an ordinance that the City Council has passed for first reading that will likely be affecting the duties and composition of the Planning Commission in the near future. In addition, I wanted to let you know that your normal attorney, Layla Sawari, is doing well. Baby's healthy. Everything's going well. It's great to be here at a Planning Commission meeting. Honestly, this is where I started my career, doing land use and entitlement. I enjoy these meetings a lot. Sorry if I get a bit chatty, but it's fun for me. And then I did want to introduce Zara Majan, who's sitting in what is normally the Public Works Director's seat at City Council meetings, which is as far from the staff podium as possible, so that whenever called, the walk is a dramatic one. But Zara will be your attorney at your next meeting. Happy to have her on board. She's been with us for a while now. A lot of experience in local government. Yeah, that's it. So thank you, Chair.
Well, welcome aboard. Agenda item number 10, community development reports to our newly appointed director, Monique.
Thank you. I'd just like to report on some of the actions from the September 26th, 2023 City Council meeting. At that meeting, the council approved a storefront vandalism relief program allocating $200,000 from undesignated general fund reserves to storefront vandalism relief program, which will support small business owners and nonprofit organizations by mitigating financial hardships associated with vandalism. The council also adopted a resolution accepting $536,000 for a bicycle and pedestrian facilities program, bringing various streets and pedestrian improvements. These improvements will include new sidewalks, accessible curb ramps, curb and gutter improvements, and ADA compliant driveways. The improvements will be made on Latham Avenue, Santa Fe Street, State Street, Manuel Avenue, Gilbert, and Alessandro Street. The efforts fall in line with the city's strategic goals and specifically are an effort to improve the quality of life. Lastly, council considered options for additional audit of the city's Measure U funds for additional transparency efforts. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Now 10C, future agenda items, Director Monique.
Future agenda items in the pipeline. We do have JD Fields and Company development coming forward for future development. We are getting close to bringing back the safety element update and environmental justice element that we've been working on for quite some time now, as well as a future industrial development, a conditional use permit proposal called the Kirby Project. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Director Monique. And last, item 10, Planning Commissioner reports. Director Monique.
Commissioner Booth,
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Hill,
Can you guys tell us more about what the changes in the planning commission are going to be?
Sure. What question do you have specifically?
Well, you said that our purview of the planning commission is going to be updated. Can you tell us more about that?
Or I can bring up the specific list. Give me 2 seconds. Essentially, there are certain duties that were previously assigned to the Infrastructure Commission that the City Council intends, it appears, to transfer to the Planning Commission. Some of these were redundant things. So, for example, under state law, the Planning Commission is required to review the capital improvement program or capital improvement plan, CIP, for the city on an annual basis. The city's municipal code also had the Infrastructure Commission doing that. And then finally, the City Council has to approve it because it's part of the budget. And so it was felt that if you have multiple different advisory bodies all reviewing and approving the same thing, it could be an unnecessary delay. But let me bring up the exact language of theirs because there were 6 specific things that they were transferring over. So the first one was to review as necessary and make recommendations to the City Council in the development of municipal facility master plans related to infrastructure improvements, parks and roadways, similar plans of the city and regional plans, for example, with WRCOG, RCTC, or SCAG, that will affect the city. This makes sense. You already are responsible for various aspects of reviewing the general plan, things like circulation element. You look at facilities like parks. You guys are already doing the advisory work on a broad scale. And so the City Council felt it was appropriate for you guys to maybe be involved at a slightly lower, more granular scale when it comes to, okay, you guys approve the general plan that says, for example, we're going to have this particular road be a 4-lane arterial or 6-lane arterial. You are also now going to be involved in advising and reviewing the master plans where we're maybe implementing those items. So it should be somewhat perhaps more rewarding to see not just the general language, but specific. Number 2 was review as necessary vehicular and pedestrian safety measures including without limitation, the provision of safe routes for pedestrians, including disabled persons, city compliance programs related to right-of-way improvements required under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Department of Transportation, and related safety measures. So one of the things that the Planning Commission does when you are approving new projects, you oftentimes are approving, as part of that, off-site improvements, as part of conditions of approval, including updates to the sidewalks, additions of stop signs, additions of crosswalks. So you're already doing that on a project basis for private projects that come in. But now you will also be included when we're doing citywide efforts in that. And it may help you sort of fill the gap. You're not just doing project by project, but maybe you're seeing how these things are all fitting into the overall scheme of the city. Review as necessary the goals and implementation measures of the circulation element of the general plan and assist staff in recommending priority projects to the city council. So you were obviously already involved in the general plan in reviewing the circulation element, but now you are being asked to assist staff in recommending priority projects. So that means, okay, so you get the circulation element, you know what we want the city to look at full build out, but we obviously can't build all of that in 1 year, 2 years, or even 5 years. You're being asked to assist, saying, okay, here are 10 projects that would bring us to this ultimate objective. Which ones do you think, as residents of the city, people who drive these streets all the time, which ones do you think are the priority? You will serve as the city's tree board. If you want to know what the tree board does, it's referenced several times throughout the municipal code, but fundamentally, you are going to be looking at essentially what is the tree program for the city. I think that's pretty consistent with other work that you guys do. The Planning Commission, one of your duties is the landscaping and aesthetics of projects that come forward. But again, this gives you maybe more of a citywide scope. So you're not just looking project by project, but you're also looking at the overall objective here. Review as necessary the community's need and standards of care for new parks, open space, and recreational facilities, as well as the design, development, and location of new parks and recreational facilities and landscaping. Most new parks that are created in the city come about through development. So either it is a condition of approval for a project that's coming forward that developer build a park. So you guys are already doing this in large part, but again, now the council's asking you look beyond just the individual project that you have and try to think of a broader view of the city as a whole. And then last thing, perform other such duties as may be assigned by the city council from time to time. So they may have things, they have occasionally they'll submit a question that they would like further review on. The overall sort of impact of this, I think you sort of heard it with each of those comments, was the Planning Commission thus far spends a lot of time working on the planning of individual private projects that come forward. But there's also city planning, right? And so I think that the overall sort of tenor of the changes, I mean, obviously you have to talk to your council member if you want to get in their head, but the overall tenor of it seems to be that what they are hoping that the Planning Commission will be able to do with this slightly expanded portfolio is look beyond the boundaries of an individual project. Don't just look at this parcel, look at the neighborhood around it, look at the streets beyond it. Where are we going as a community? And let's plan our way there, I guess.
This is really exciting because I think we've been asking for that capability for a few months now, and we went to that seminar there on Planning Commission seminar, and they talked a lot about stuff like that. And so we came back, ready to go on that front. So this is exciting news.
Right.
Typically, most cities don't typically have all these different commissions, correct? It's usually planning is the one that handles those duties in most cases.
It certainly depends on the community. Some communities have lots of boards, commissions, and committees, and some of them don't. Some of them, the boards, commissions, and committees, have significant influence and ability to shape policy. My first city that I started in had semi-independent Parks Commission and a fully independent water board that essentially controlled the water department, including its budget and rate setting. So it runs the gamut. I think that the comments that were made by the council during the city council meeting were that they want citizen input. They look at the planning commission, you get the most citizen input. Probably because things are publicly noticed, things are very real. Other boards and commissions really weren't getting that level of input. So they really valued, I think, the input of the people on those boards and commissions. But they felt that maybe consolidating that into a single entity would yield the best product for them and some efficiencies. So instead of projects going to them and then going to you and then going to another commission and then coming back and then going up, you just come down and go back up.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
I guess with that, is there'll be some level of, I won't say training, but at least, some discussion on what those roles are and kind of what's expected of the planning commission. At some point, it would be nice to get maybe some staff presentation during work study or something that kind of goes through what each one of those previous commissions that are now, or committees that are now being consolidated are responsible for. And so I'll start with my first point. I keep getting complaints from people driving up State Street at the intersection at is it Chambers? The one where the school is, Diamond Valley and McSweeney. I'm not sure what's going on with the signal, but maybe if we could have our city staff look at the signal there. I just came up on Thursday myself and it was backed up all the way to the Gibble tank. There was nothing going on except that the light was just kept going red and then going back red. And so when you get all that traffic coming down Dominigoni, I don't know, there's something has changed recently with the signal sequencing at the intersection of State Street and Diamond Valley, and then also at Thornton actually I think it's Thornton, not Chambers. I think it's the one at Thornton. I forget which is which. Thornton. But anyways, so since I'm now infrastructure commission.
That's why I always
You couldn't even get there though. That was the point is that the traffic, when I pulled in, I live out in Diamond Valley and I was stopped bumper to bumper right after Dominigoni Parkway, right at there's those two water tanks up on the side. The traffic was backed up all the way to there and it would move very, very slowly. Yeah. So, and that's happened several times with different people that live out in my neighborhood. So I don't know, maybe it just seems recently, just like in the last month or so. I don't know if there's something changed with the signal, but anyways, that's all. And congratulations, Monique, once again. I think that's great for the city and well deserved.
Thank you very much.
For my report, I'll start off with good news. Scenic Highway by Citrus Point is looking quite nice out there. You've driven out there yet at all? They're put sidewalks in. It looks really nice.
Where's this?
The Citrus Point by Lake in Florida out there.
Okay.
So the Scenic Highway is coming along, looking really nice. I do have some citizen complaints that they have gone to see Click Fix. They have called the city. And so far, some of the stuff hasn't been addressed. There is right behind Front Street on downtown. There last couple Friday nights, actually, there's been a lot of skateboarders skateboarding back behind the parking lot on Front Street. And it seemed to be, I don't know if the city installed it or somebody placed it there, but there's like a little metal rail on the ground. Took a picture of it and they're using that to skate across their board to slide. What's that?
Did you receive complaints about the skateboard?
Yes, well, about the group of kids that are hanging out there.
Were they doing something?
I guess some of the kids went into an establishment and graffitied the bathroom. And they're concerned. They asked for them to go away. The kids don't respect the the tenants that are there. They called the cops. Cops basically said, him at PD said, well, they'll probably leave when it gets dark. And so they're a little concerned about the outcome of what is, I don't know if the city allowed that, they put it there. But there's kids that are, a bunch of kids now starting Friday nights and stuff, and the weekends are going out there skateboarding. And there's some complaints about that.
We'll make sure to make some flyers about our forthcoming skate park, right?
Yeah.
No
Get
kidding.
that thing moving.
So they're aware, which will also have lights so they can skate at night.
Yeah, and there's not really lights over where that part of the road is there, not really lit up too well. The other thing is semi truck parking. That's something I think the city should, council should come together and kind of have a discussion about that, because there are some semi trucks that are parking in front of homes that shouldn't be parking there overnight. But we know how important semi truck drivers are to the economy. And I don't know why the city, I know St. Son ran into the same issue with the property owner. And I don't understand why the city is such a hard thing to assign an area for semi trucks to park and not upset the community wherever they park at night. And last thing was on Rainier Way, Rainier Way in Hemet, is near between Lion and Palm, the retirement community. At the last 3.5 months, the sidewalk has completely pivoted up almost 6 to 8 inches. There's no trees around. And as a senior community, they go walking, and one lady has already fallen, but luckily was okay. And they also went to see Click Fix to address that, and so far nothing has been addressed. Other than that, and congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you.
I have nothing else to report. And if there's nothing more, we will adjourn this meeting until October 17th, 2023.